Hey everybody, welcome into 3 Shades of Blue TV. I am your host, Zach Thomas, and we're here for another week of 3 Shades of Blue TV. There you go. There's my Twitter handle, at Zachary T. Thomas. You can also follow us at 3SOBtv. We're glad you've joined us this week. We got a lot to talk about. We got a panel that's going to be joining us later. We got a good show. Hopefully you guys will stick around and watch for the rest of the evening. Going to finally have learned how to use this Google Hangout thing, so we're going to showcase a few different items. First of all, there's my Twitter account, if you didn't already know. But want to show a few more things here later on throughout the night. But first off, let's start with a few notes, right? A few notes from this week. First of all, we're here at 3SOBtv. As you can see behind me, there's a big old board full of our logos. We want that to be your logos. If you're a business or if you own a business or you work for a company that like to sponsor and work with 3SOBtv or 3 Shades of Blue in any way, our website, or even our radio program, 3SOB Radio, that's on Saturday mornings on Sports 56 WHBQ locally, we'd love to talk to you. You can send me a tweet at Zachary T. Thomas. You can reach out to us on Twitter, or you can email 3SOBtv@gmail.com, 3SOBtv@gmail.com. Prices start as low as $150 a month to sponsor, so it's a really great way that if you get in now, you get in early. As this thing blows up, hopefully, like we expect it to do, you're going to grow with us, and so you'll get the benefit of bringing all the additional impressions and people and followers and subscribers that we get. You'll be benefiting from that as well. So we hope you'll join us. Again, you can reach us through email, 3SOBtv@gmail.com, or on Twitter at 3SOBtv. So, a little business to take care of there on the front end, but let's talk a little bit about the past week. Last week we joined together on Tuesday night, and since then we have had 4 preseason basketball games. It has been the preseason because we haven't seen the starters much, but we have seen a lot of basketball, and so there's a little bit of, a few things you can take away, I think, from the preseason that we've seen so far, and we'll get into that later with our panel. But first, I want to kind of point you back to a few recaps that we had. Game 1 we had last Wednesday night in Milwaukee, and the Grizzlies lost that game 86-83. 3SOB.com is the source for all information of Grizzlies, and we have our link there from last week's recap. Interesting thing to note about that game, the regular starters played 82.6 minutes in that game, so just under about 16 minutes per game, or just over 16 minutes per game, so about a quarter and a third, so not a lot of starter minutes played in that game, and so didn't really get to see much, but we saw a lot from the bench guys. We saw a lot from the younger guys, the non-guaranteed contracts, our rookies, Jordan Adams, Jarnell Stokes. They played great. They've been playing great this whole preseason so far. But then we went to Atlanta. We played Houston next, and we lost 113-93. And honestly, I mean, Houston, they've got the same style of play all up and down their roster. They live and die by the three. If they're draining threes, they're going to be hard to beat. And they made 14 of them. I think they were 14 of 28, so they shot 50% or close to that from the game in the game from 3-point. So that's pretty hard to overcome. Plus, you add in the fact that our starters only played 55 minutes in that game. That's a pretty interesting thing there as well. Our post-game report from there just shared that with you guys, so you can take a look at that from our Rockets game. And then we came home. We had our first preseason opening game here at the Grindhouse, where we played Atlanta. I was there covering that game. It was pretty exciting because the starters played a lot of minutes. That's the most minutes they've played since, and in all the 4 of the games, and they played 146 minutes combined in that game. So that's they got their regular rotation minutes. I asked Zebo afterwards how it felt to get his blood pumping and everything, and he said it felt great. So he's excited about the season. He's ready to play. Here's our post-game recap from that game as well. We won that one, 93-88, so that was a good outcome. The next game, obviously, last night in OKC, the starters did not play at all. That was something that Joerger saw that Durant was out. They weren't playing Ibaka and some other guys, so I think Joerger just said, hey, let's see what the young guys can do. Let's give them a shot. So they went in and they played, and they gave it a lot. A few things we saw from that was Jordan Adams was tremendous. We'll talk a little bit about him later with the panel and how good he's been, but Jordan Adams was great. We saw some of the young guys, Jarnell Stokes, John Lure got in there and played well, as well as Coupon. Coupon got off to a rough start this year. Last night he had a good game. He scored 16 points, 4 of 9 shooting, and I think he was 3 of 5 from deep. So that's encouraging for Coupon because he had not hit a 3 all preseason so far. So hopefully that jump starts things for him, and through the rest of the preseason, the second half, he'll get things going, and we'll see where he ends up in the rotation later on. And here is that final recap from last night that was on 3SOBtv. So that's a pretty fun way to start things out, right? To recap all of the games. But if you want to take a look at them, go ahead, read back through. I'm sure most of you who are watching this, you guys have already seen everything. So let's talk about the high-low. This week's high-low, it's a segment I like to call to bring in. You have the pick and pop, you get some other things. Well, we got the high-low here on 3SOBtv. So the Grizzlies made, the high of the week, the Grizzlies made 17 free throws, all of their free throws, 100% in the game versus Atlanta. Interesting fact, that would have been the third time, if this were a regular season game, the third time since moving to Memphis, the Grizzlies were perfect from the stripe with 15 or more free throw attempts in a game. And it would rank second most in free throw attempts at 100%. So the most they ever had in one game was against the Pelicans last year in November when they went 18 for 18 from the line. Other than that, the Grizzlies have not ever had a 100% game with more than 15 free throw attempts. So that's pretty impressive that they did that 17 and 17. I think I asked Eric Hasseltine after the game if he had ever seen that stat because nobody really paid attention. It's the preseason, right? But I paid attention because I love numbers. And he said no, he did not think that had ever happened before. So once, and that was in last year against the Pelicans in New Orleans. So that's a great high of the week for the Grizzlies. The low of the week would be the fact that we're averaging 18.5 turnovers per game in the preseason. Again, it's preseason. You got a lot of different players in there running a lot of different things. It's up and down. You're going to turn the ball over. However, and I do expect that to tighten up, obviously, when you get the rotation guys, the starters playing more. But the thing that's alarming to me is that it's not just the bench guys. It's not just the non-guaranteeds that have been turning the ball over a lot. The starters have been turning the ball over. And I know that's probably a lot of just working things out, but I'd like to see that improve throughout the second half of the preseason going into the season because teams are going to be able to score a lot. This is the NBA, right? I mean, you turn the ball over, someone's going to convert on it, and we don't want to see that. So I think that's the low of the week, which is not that bad, right? It's preseason, but it's high-low, right? That's the high-low of the week. So anyway, I'd like to now turn to our panel this week. We've got a great panel that we're going to discuss a few things here for the next 20 minutes or so. I'd like to bring in our guests. We've got Anthony Sane. There's Anthony right there, and you can follow him on Twitter at Sane Asylum. Anthony writes for 3shadesofblue.com. We also have Brandon Speck, and there's Brandon. You can follow him on Twitter at Brandon Speck. He covers the Grizzlies for Fox Sports Tennessee. So we're really very appreciative you were able to join us tonight, Brandon.
My pleasure.
We also have Steve Danziger. There's Steve. Steve writes for 3 Shades of Blue covers a lot of. He just put up a post yesterday about Quincy Pondexter. I encourage you guys to go read that while you're on our website. And then finally, we've got Jonathan May. Where's Jonathan? You up there? J. May? Okay. Jonathan, you there?
What's up?
Hey, there we go. He's coming in and out. All right. Well, if he comes back, we'll talk to him.
I'm here, I think.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into it, guys. First of all, let's take the Wings. Let's go to school this week. All right. So let's take the Wings to school. Here's what we got. I want you guys I'm going to run down the list here, and we'll start with Sane, or actually we'll start through each wing player, all 6 of them. I want you to give me a grade A through F and then explain in about 60 seconds why you gave the player that grade so far. This is strictly based upon the 4 preseason games that you've seen and that we've seen the stat lines we've read about. So, Brandon, let's start with you, and let's start with Quincy Pondexter. So give me a grade, and then tell me a brief explanation.
I will give Quincy a B. I'll give him a B plus, and we'll take it back a little bit even further. He played well two postseasons ago. Of course, missed all last year, but I think Quincy's still working the kinks out. I think the B, just based on what we know he can do, and I don't think you've seen what he can do yet. He's still trying to. And he said today at practice he's still trying to work the kinks out of his bones and get back in the flow of an up and down game. So I think he has what it takes to be in that starting wing rotation, but I don't think he knows he's at full strength yet. So for right now, B, but I think they can bump up to an A pretty quickly.
All right, fair enough. Hey, let's go to Anthony. Give me Vince Carter.
Vince Carter, since we're grading our wings, I think you have to give Vince an incomplete at this point. We haven't really seen enough of Vince in the preseason. A lot of reports came out that he didn't really practice much during training camp. And even if you look at the minutes he's had, he doesn't look like he's actually going full strength. I'm actually a little concerned about Vince Carter. I know a lot of people think that he's going to come in and do well. I still do think he's going to do well. But at the age that he is, you have to be a little concerned about the fact that we're not seeing him in preseason. I know that everyone's saying that we know what he's going to give us and things like that, but the fact that we haven't seen him, you have to give him an incomplete grade.
All right. Fair enough. There we go. Let's go to you, Steve, and let's talk about Tony Allen.
Tony Allen, big fat. He took a three-pointer against Houston, and I was not happy. No, I'm just kidding. The thing with Tony is he's played 22 minutes in the preseason, which you can't really conclude anything out of that. Overall, he's been Tony Allen, going to be Tony Allen. We know who he's going to be. We know what he's going to do. He started next to Quincy Pondexter against the Bucks, and I think that's something you may see during the season, depending on how Quincy plays, regardless of how Tony plays. So I think Tony's a work in progress in terms of grading him, but we know who he is and what he does.
All right. Let's go to Jonathan. Let's talk about Courtney Lee.
Courtney Lee, I think, has been a disappointment since about his 4th week in Memphis in terms of being the player that we hoped he'd be. The preseason, I haven't seen enough of him really to put a solid grade on it. I like saying it's incomplete, being 5 games into the preseason schedule, but I'd give him, a B- at this point. He stayed healthy. He's tried to contribute when he's on the floor, but he just hadn't played enough minutes at this point to really know what we have with him right now.
All right, Brandon. Talk about Tayshaun Prince for me.
I think Tayshaun's the one that scares everybody if you see him in that starting lineup. With him and TA, it's a little bit frightening. You got a lot of defense and really not much offense. You're talking about those scary three-pointers. He'll take an ill advisement every now and then. But people are kind of worried that Tayshaun's going to have his loyalty with Joerger, so he may be in that starting 5 the first night. But I think Tayshaun's length is good, but as far as the starting wing, I think he's better off the bench and maybe even that 4 spot than a 2 or 3. So I think there's some worry he might start, and that's very legitimate worry, but I don't think that's the guy they should go to as a starting wing. I would give Tayshaun, 13 years in, a C.
C. All right. Wow. So, Anthony, we're going to end with you. Let's talk about Jordan Adams, your boy.
Man, I got to have at least about 5 minutes for this one, Zach. You might as well just shut the show down, all right? But Jordan Adams, since we're still talking about school grading, I believe you have to keep in mind that when someone starts a class, they start off with an A and have to work themselves down to an F. I believe that Jordan Adams right now is an A, just based simply because of the potential he's shown already. So many good things he's brought to the court already. The ability to make shots, the mid-range game. He actually can draw free throws, which is something we've never had in any player probably in the history of Grizzlies history, a guy that can actually get to the line. I don't know how many times we can talk about how inefficient it is to have a team where most of our points come from post-ups and taking jump shots and not having that guy who can get to the free throw line. There's so much promise in Jordan Adams. You have to start him off with an A at this point just because of the potential and the things that we've seen him doing so far this season. Just like if you look at just being lighthearted about it, if you look at any type of poll where you have to name the top, your starting 5 Grizzlies of all time at every position, each one of those polls has Courtney Lee in it. So that just tells you how weak the shooting guard position has been through the history of this franchise. So to have a guy like Jordan Adams, you have to give him an 8 based on what you're seeing so far.
He's been phenomenal. I mean, I expected him to be great after draft night, and just knowing the analytics and the numbers show that he is supposed to be really good, and him and Jarnell Stokes both. And Jordan Adams has come in from the very beginning, from the very first game against Milwaukee, and he's been impressive. And just getting to the free throw line, getting inside the lane, creating shots, creating his own offense, playing really well on defense. He leads the league through the preseason for among rookies with 2.5 steals per game. I didn't check to see where that falls under the entire league with outside of rookies, but that's pretty phenomenal. I mean, 2.5 steals per game. And again, I know it's the preseason, but I think for him that bodes well for the future. And as long as he can get some minutes and he can prove that he's a worthy player, I think you'll be hearing Jordan Adams' name called out in the grindhouse a lot sooner than we think in that starting lineup. So great. So there's your grades, right? All right. So we got Coupon, Vince, Tony, Courtney, Tayshaun, and Jordan Adams. Here's what I would like to know. Out of those 6 guys so far, who would you pair as the best 2-man lineup? Out of those, the best 2-man pair, so who do you see as producing the most on the wing? Steve, let's go to you.
Sure. So on the wing, I think I'm looking at Jordan Adams, obviously producing the most thus far, but he's the one who has to produce the most thus far. Him and Quincy are 2 guys that are really going to be called upon this preseason to show what they can do, because the Grizzlies know what they're going to get out of Tony Allen. They know what little they're going to get out of Tayshaun Prince. Vince Carter is somebody who you're not going to run through the ringer in preseason, but you're not entirely sure how he's going to fit in with this group. Jordan Adams, Quincy Pondexter, if I had to have 2 preseason guys right now balling out, just like they were last night, I would let them out there and just reins off.
All right. Spec, what do you think?
I like TA. I don't think you can get too far away from the defense. I know we like to talk about more offense and this and that, but this is a defensive team. I think TA out there is a great mix with a guy like Coupon. If Coupon comes back and shows what he has shown flashes of, so I like TA and Coupon. I think that's interchangeable, obviously, but I'd love to start with those 2 just to see how they mesh out there.
All right. Jonathan, what do you think? All right, Shane, what do you think?
Well, as far as the starting wings, this changes with me a lot. The broadcast you're probably going to see after this one about the wings that we recorded the other day is going to be different than what I'm about to say now. I think the best lineup is Tony and Courtney Lee, simply because I love watching that lineup against Oklahoma City. We didn't see that lineup much at all because of Tony's health last year. We didn't see them play too much at all together. But I think that I really like to see. I liked how that lineup looked against Oklahoma City. Also, it allows Jordan Adams to be your backup shooting guard to play alongside Vince Carter with Quincy Pondexter and Tayshaun, the ones that suffer the lack of minutes. I don't think that lineup will actually happen. I think it'll be a lot different than the one I'm wishing to see, simply because you've heard so much from Joerger about how he doesn't like that smaller lineup, as well as the things that you're hearing about Coupon possibly starting as well. But that's the one I love to see is Tony Allen and Courtney Lee. It works for me on 2K so far, so that's the one. That's what I use.
It's all about 2K, right?
Yeah, man.
All right, J-May, let's go back to you. What do you think about that? Can you get it? Are you there, J-May?
I'm here. Yeah. I keep expecting it to switch to me, but I guess I just get to look at Juzak when I'm talking. You know me, I'm vain. I like to look at myself. For my money at this point, I still expect Tony Allen, Quincy Pondexter pairing starting on the wings. I know Quincy hadn't shown us enough thus far in the preseason, but I'm not ready to give up just yet. I think when they signed him to that extension, they saw him as a guy that could fill that role at least until they have an obvious 1A small forward, and so I think those 2 guys will complement each other well. I don't expect the 2 of them necessarily to play a lot of minutes down the stretch of games together, but I think that's probably where you start the game.
All right, fair enough. Personally, I would love to see, and I know this is crazy, but through the preseason, and I got a lot of heat on Twitter this morning for this, but I'd say through the preseason right now, the best two wings that I've seen in games, as well as the statistics that I've seen through 4 preseason games, small sample size, but I think it's Jordan Adams and Tayshaun Prince. I mean, I haven't been that impressed with Courtney Lee or Quincy Pondexter. I think both of those guys neither one of those guys have knocked Tayshaun off the pedestal. And I mean, right now, I guess you would say Tony Allen. He hasn't really played much. He's been dealing with new daddy syndrome and staying up with his baby. So I know he's been really tired, and Joerger's been giving him the games off. And obviously Vince Carter, he has only played in 1 game. So I guess he played in the other night, but he didn't play but 8 minutes. So I think Tayshaun and Jordan Adams have proven the most through 4 games. Now we got another 4 games to go, and so I expect things to get a lot more competitive. And I think guys will raise their game, and it's going to be a fun couple of weeks here. We do open up 2 weeks from tonight, actually. So, all right, well, let's move on to another subject for the next couple of minutes here. Let's try to go inside the mind of Dave Joerger, which is always dangerous, right? Sane, let me ask you this. What do you think's up with his rotation so far this preseason? I mean, again, it's preseason, but do you think he makes his own decisions on the rotations, or do you think he has input from the front office?
I think it'll be silly to say that he doesn't have influence from the front office. I believe they've already came out and pretty much said that they work together as a team with a lot of things that they do. I don't think that they're hands-on telling him, who to play and who not to play. I don't think it's that type of situation, but I do believe that he's open for input. The preseason has been kind of strange so far. We haven't seen the starters play too much at all, and he really hasn't shown his hand at all as far as who his starters on the wing may be. Even with the guys he's sitting out Tony, Tayshaun, and Vince Carter so far. So we really don't know what he's going with. I was really probably digging too deep for things yesterday when I saw that Tayshaun and Tony Allen didn't start, and he had basically Courtney Lee and Jordan Adams in a basically who comes out looking better type situation last night. I know I probably was looking into too much, but like you were saying, Zach, about the possible Tayshaun Prince and Jordan Adams lineup, that what he did yesterday kind of made me think that may be what he may be looking at to see if Adams could emerge to outplay Courtney Lee last night.
All right. So, Brandon, let me ask you this. Do you think that Joerger should have input from the front office, first of all, in the lineup and in the rotations? And also, do you think that Grizz Nation should prepare themselves for more head-scratching lineups once the season starts?
I think he should be willing to take input, but not necessarily use input. I mean, it's his team. He's going to either go down with the ship or float with it. But head scratching, if he's taking advice from you, we're starting Tayshaun. So we'll see what happens. I think I'll scratch my head if that happens.
Nice. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, Steve, let me ask you this. Do you think that Joerger is going to make some bold rotation moves and possibly endure the wrath of fans on opening night? And if you're him, so it's a 2-part, and if you're him, which veteran are you most concerned about sitting on the bench?
What does that mean?
Yeah, that's you.
Couldn't exactly hear. All right, yeah, so if I'm Dave, I'm probably most worried about putting Tony Allen on the bench, only because of the history with Tony Allen, being a starter on this team, and there have been comments in the past about how Tony works better as a starter, but it's almost kind of inevitable that has to come. I mean, if we're looking at Jordan Adams as a possible starter one of these days, Tony's going to have to bite the bullet at some point, and it's better to start it like this and have like a Courtney Lee start, showcase himself, and get traded or find some other way out, and then slide Jordan Adams into that spot, than it is to start Tony Allen here and then take that job away from him. So I think that it's kind of a necessary evil at this point in time, and you kind of worry a little bit, but I think Tony's a team player and he'll totally get it.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think I definitely think that Tony Allen's probably going to be one of the guys that's going to have to just accept his role. I know I was listening to the radio today, and I believe, I forget who the guest was, but someone said that Udonis Haslem had the same problem last year. You know, when you were surrounded by the three big men, it was kind of like, well, now I have to understand that I'm surrounded by better players, and I've got to just accept my role and be okay with it. And I think that's the biggest thing for Joerger to have to do is to really manage everybody's egos and expectations. May, what do you think about Joerger and his rotations, and then where do you think he's going to land this season?
You know, I think the front office has put him in a little bit of a bind with this kind of mixed bag of wings he has. I mean, they've not made things easy for him in terms of trying to figure out what to make work, as evidenced, frankly, by the proliferation of blog posts and Twitter arguments and talk radio segments on the issue that we're going to spend the majority of tonight talking about. You know, I don't think that the front office has the kind of input that some fans like to suggest when it comes to the rotations that Joerger puts out there. Obviously, they give him players that they want him to play them, things they have, or they think these players have a role in the team. He's an NBA head coach, and he has the freedom to play the guys as he sees fit. If he didn't run out starters last night, it's because he wants to get a look at some of these guys in the next unit. So I, you know, like somebody alluded to a minute ago, I certainly don't envy the task that he has this season, and I suspect as fans that there are still going to be a lot of nights where we kind of scratch our head and say, what is he doing? You know, what is this lineup? And some nights things are going to work that don't work the next time he tries it, so it's going to take some time.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that as well, right? So, you know, I think the front office, I mean, honestly, Shane, you've said this multiple times, the best thing that can happen is that there's a deal of some sort made to trade one of these wing players away possibly so that it can open up some playing time for somebody else. Because as it stands right now, we've got 13, 14 guys on our roster who can all contribute on a nightly basis in some way. And so you can only have 13 active players, so somebody's got to be moved. And maybe multiple people are moved. Who knows? I mean, we'll see. I do think the front office has made it tough. And Joerger, as he said on Media Day, does he have a clear shot? Does he like having it this deep of a team? Absolutely not. He doesn't like it because it's hard. And you've got to make people mad. You got to make fans mad. You got to make players mad. And you know, it's kind of a lose-lose situation. The only thing that's going to help him is to win games. You know, that's what it all comes back to, is winning games. So, well, guys, I really appreciate all of you getting on here and talking and everything. This has been fun. We'll do it again maybe next week and the week to follow. So thanks for joining us on the panel. And that's it for those guys. But we'll continue to have them on and go throughout as we build upon this 3SOBtv. So in closing, let me just bring in our closing thoughts here. First of all, I think Dave Joerger's a brilliant mind, right? He's a little stubborn, he's a little awkward, but you know, his mind works in a way that most of ours don't. And because of that, I think he's got one of the best handles on the situation, right? I mean, he's with these guys day in and day out. And as long as he's got trust in his staff and his staff trusts in him, and he allows people around him to challenge his decisions, I think that's very important in a leader, is you have to be willing to let other people challenge your decisions. And as long as he's able to do that, whether it's in the front office or on his staff, then I think it's going to be hard to question the decisions that he makes. You know, that doesn't mean that we won't still question them, but as long as he ends up with good results and he's winning games, you know, I mean, again, winning cures everything. So as far as the wings are concerned, it's all going to play itself out, right? You've got Rio de Janeiro this Saturday or this Friday night, and then after that you've got Dallas, and then you got Cleveland and Miami. So you have three playoff teams. You've got three teams that are very loaded and have a lot of people, a lot of great players on there. So I think what will happen is you'll expect the rotation to get tighter. The minutes will get a little, you know, more like what's going to happen in the season. And who knows? I mean, maybe we will see Tayshaun Prince and Courtney Lee starting again. You know, I mean, that's who ended the season starting. You might see that. Or would it be Tony and Vince? I mean, I don't think Vince Carter's probably going to start at this point, but Tony Allen certainly could. Joerger said that in the media days. He said it in the preseason and interviews. Tony Allen plays better when he starts. And you know already what you're going to get from Tony Allen. I mean, you know you're going to get energy, and you know you're going to get a lot of good defensive plays and just disruptions into the other team's offense. And, the last thing is, could Jordan Adams possibly steal somebody's starting role? He might. I don't think he's going to do it in the beginning of the season, but he certainly can do it by the end of the season. And Quincy Pondexter, he's kind of been disappointing to start off the preseason, but last night was reassuring. I think as long as he gets out there and understands his role in the offense and doesn't try to do too much, like he tried to do last season starting off, he's going to be a great player. And he's definitely going to be able to produce and provide us a lot of good quality minutes, whether he's starting or coming off the bench. Whatever role Joerger assigns to him, I think Q is going to be very important to the strength of our team and how far we go, not only in the season but also into the playoffs. So, hey, after Friday night against Rio de Janeiro, the race is on. There's 3 games for these guys to lock it up on the court as well as in practice every day. So it's going to be a fun 2 weeks heading up to the season. I do expect that we'll be saying a few goodbyes to some of those non-guaranteed contracts after Friday night. So Friday night will be their last chance to play in a Grizzlies uniform. But I've been really impressed with Patrick Christopher so far. I think he's done really well. Some of the advanced statistics, sample size, have shown that he's one of the best wing players on our team, and beyond that in the league right now through the preseason. So anyway, that's it, guys. I think I've covered everything for this episode. Set your calendars for next Thursday night. Next Thursday night, October 23rd, 8:30 p.m. Central Time. All right, next Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Central Time. I'll be joined by the voice of the Grizzlies, Rick Trotter. Plus, we'll have another panel discussion. So I really appreciate you all tuning in, and thanks for joining me. Thanks to all the guys that have joined me on the panel. And if you want to be a sponsor, remember, if you want to sponsor the show, you want your logo right behind me for an entire 30-minute segment, send me an email to 3SOBtv@gmail.com or reach out to me on Twitter. Really look forward to getting that rolling and partnering with some of your businesses and really developing some relationships there in the community. So, hey, that's all for me. Don't forget, follow me at Zachary T. Thomas on Twitter or at 3SOBtv. Other than that, be smart, stay clean, keep the dream. That's right.